What's going on, YouTube? We are live, and today we're going to be talking about fire.
Yeah, you should have talked about this last week before Turkey Day. Yeah, 'cause then we could have talked about ways to build fires, ways to have fires, ways to cook your turkey on the fire. But hey,
Yeah,
sorry guys, we still got Christmas coming up, so
Christmas
you
is
can
coming.
smoke a ham and
Cook some hot dog weenies.
that's right.
We are going to talk about fire starting. We're going to talk about some fire tools. We're going to talk about fire kits. And it's one of those important things. This is Prepper School Volume 6. There is a playlist. You can go back and check out our other different subjects that we're doing. And we're just kind of going through the gamut. We're going to go through it. Really appreciate Robbie Wheaton being here from WheatonArms.com. They sell a lot of Glock aftermarket parts, great flat face triggers. I know y'all just had a big Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all kind of sale.
We did. Yep.
So
still have some in stock.
Okay,
which is a good thing.
That is a good thing, but man, those things get going in a hurry.
Yes,
so
they do.
check out Wheaton Arms. Also, GoMed Gear if you're looking for medical gear. And so, just a great resource. Robbie's been a gunsmith for over 20 years, and it's really great to have him with us, just getting in the fray.
Yep.
And we appreciate Sarah Mack. She'll be answering questions. If you have questions that are related to fire, mainly. I mean, we may take some other questions. But mainly just related to fire, some different things. Go ahead and ask those questions, and when we get ready to take a break, she'll have those questions ready. And we appreciate Sportsman's Guide. They give a $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Sootch. Just SOOTCH. It works. I've ordered stuff this week. I am always ordering stuff from Sportsman's Guide because they have a huge array of different things. And we really appreciate Sportsman's Guide.
And you have to sign up for their buyers club as well. Their buyers club, you get some additional discounts on your purchases as well as free shipping on almost everything they have in stock.
Yeah, I mean it's a great resource. I mean, all the way from camping, hunting, survival type gear, and a lot of surplus gear. And guys, that's probably where I spend most of my money is on surplus gear because it's tested.
And the coolest magazine there is.
That's right, coolest catalog on the market. Okay, so we want to talk about though is fire, and to me, one of the most important elements of survival is fire. You need to have the ability to start fire. And I'll just tell you this: unless you've gone out and actually built a fire and really used your tools, you'll be surprised. You can watch all the videos you want to on fire making, but when it comes down to it, it's actually hands-on. Knowledge is one thing, skill is a totally different thing. We had our prepper group. We had a fire clinic one time. We went out, everybody brought their fire kits. Man, they were all decked out. They had these really great fire kits, and they didn't know what to do with them. So, it was a very eye-opening experience.
Yep.
And so, for one thing, using a ferrocerium rod or fire steel for the first time, I mean, it takes some skill and some talent to use these things and to know. And there are different methods. You can, scrape, pull away. You can just go forward. Of course, that usually puts your fire out, but sometimes it's important to do that. Another way is just to take it and just scrape it like this real fast back and forth, and it creates a lot of spark. And so knowing about batoning wood, knowing about feathering wood, about stacking, and those are some things we're going to get into as well. But guys, the big thing is it's not just about your fire kit. It's not just about the tools. It's not just about the knowledge, the head knowledge. It's about skill.
Practical applied application.
Right.
Yep.
Now, one thing that, of course, Robbie's had a lot of experience.
Oh, yeah. We applied it last night.
Did you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Little guy and I, we finished dinner, and my wife was out for a little while, and he was like, "Hey, can we have a fire tonight?" I was like, "I think that's a great idea. We definitely need to go sit outside and have us a fire." So about 5 minutes later, we had us a rip-roaring bonfire.
Yeah. I think the last time we were at your house, Sam went up there and started that fire. I was like, good grief, the whole world's on fire.
I think for a 13-year-old, he really knows how to build a fire and get a fire going quickly.
Yep. Well, me personally, I'm a little bit of a firebug.
I
mean, I
don't pyromaniac.
Yeah, pyromaniac. And I'd love to go out. I love when I have a video to do on fire. I mean, and guys, we have had a ton of different videos. Okay, so first thing that I want to recommend. First thing, we were at my father-in-law's a few years ago, and he was going to build this bonfire. And when he pulled out the gasoline, I told him, I said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! And so I went out to my car. I picked up my little fire kit, and actually it was this small one like this, little Maxpedition pouch. Whatever pouch is good, just some kind of small pouch you can use, and you put your important fire tools in your kit, and it keeps them in one location. One of the things over the years that I've known is that when I built my bug out bags or my go bag, get home bag, whatever, is I'd have fire tools strung all over the place. I'd have a little pouch here with my lighter, I'd have my matches, my tinder, I'd have everything broken down. So, having a small little fire kit keeps everything together. And this is an Exotac little tool roll. And, guys, I love tools. So we open up the tool roll, and inside, I'm just going to do a quick, but this has 2 different sections, and you can put all your different tools in here because redundancy is vital. In fact, I'm going to show you something. One of the things that's the easiest ever, the easiest thing is a Bic Lighter. I mean, those things are just awesome, man. They're convenient. The first thing I grab is not my fire steel. It's my Bic Lighter. I just grabbed that Bic Lighter.
Yep.
And man, they just work, right?
Until they don't.
Until they don't. And honestly, about 5 minutes before we started this video, I pulled these lighters out, and this one didn't work. And this one's worked. It's worked. So while these are great, you need to have redundancy. Plus, one of the things about a fire steel, the conditions may not be good for a fire steel. You may need, to have a lighter. You may need to have some waterproof matches, any matches at one point, but to really get down to it. But one thing about this, and you say, well, this thing's gone, screw it, you throw it. Listen, this spark can actually start a fire. So don't always forget. Now, sometimes these get corroded and they get locked down, and you can't use it. And of course, this one, the fuel's probably run out, which the fuel will run out. But we'll get into lighters in a minute. But redundancy, having your fire steel, have a Fresnel lens to be able to use the sun. Now, the sun's not always out. So there you go. So, some Lifeboat matches. These are some of my favorites, the Lifeboat matches. We've even done a video on this. You can dunk these in water. And here I have an Exotac little container to keep these. But I have my little Lifeboat matches in here. You can take them and dip them in water, and you pull them out, and they'll light back up. And so, finding the right tools, being able to have what you need, is vital. Now, one thing, and I will mention this about Exotac because they offer a 20% discount if you go to exotac.com. And you get a 20% off using Sootch00. The link's down below in the description. I just happen to think about it, actually, because Exotac does that. They're great guys. But yeah, Exotac, they have some of the best fire starters out on the market. In fact, I have some cheaper ferrocerium rods, but my favorites are these little fire rods. And you can actually replace the ferrocerium. One thing about this is, and they have in fact, I've got one somewhere on this table. We've got a ton of stuff out on this table. But you can replace this. One thing, if you're using a ferrocerium rod, you say, well, man, I've got 10,000 strikes. But the problem is once you get down, it starts to curve in, and then it starts to get more and more difficult. You can still use it, but, having those extra refills are great. And then we got the Fire Rod XL. This baby's probably has 100,000 strikes on that sucker. What's cool about these little fire rods is that they have a little compartment. I just lost my top. They have a compartment. You can put Tinder Tabs in there. And so, putting together a fire kit, having multiple ways to be able to put your fire together. So we've talked about lighters, but Bic lighters aren't the only type. We have, and I see Robbie came in here, and we have the old Bic lighter, or this is Zippo. Now, one of the things about a Zippo lighter is that if you don't keep fuel in it, and you got to keep it checked because it'll evaporate. And so that's one of the problems with a Zippo lighter. But it's funny. I think it's this one. Let me see. Nope. I've got one somewhere around here. I've got this is one of the Exotacs. I'm going to talk about Exotac because it's just I use them quite a bit. But I may not ever find it. But anyway, I've got a man, if I have to start a fire, I got this. I just put it in a big box. No, but this is another one. This is an electronic lighter. These things work great. One of my favorites, though, is a torch lighter. And, you can get these at the gas station. I mean, it puts that torch out and it has the fuel inside. You can even refuel these or refill these. I bought a whole case of these and I gave them out to all my family and friends. You know, Robbie hadn't given you one yet. There you go. All right, so you know, I've given these out because those fire torches are great. So there's a number of different lighter options out there. And guys, those that are a lot of times in the grocery store, not the well, in grocery, or if you go by a gas station,
Yeah, your local convenience stores. Yep,
they're just sitting around on the counter.
that's right. Yeah, $1 or $2 a piece. You know, they're not crazy expensive, and they produce an incredibly hot flame that's very focused, which makes it a lot easier when you're building a fire to light something versus one of the Bic lighters, which is, you know, now you're great, turn it sideways, now you're burning your finger, you can't direct the flame where you want it to go. And then that little metal cover on the top, I'm sure if you've ever played with a Bic lighter long enough, you realize how hot that cover gets very quickly and how quickly it'll burn you in your hand, or you put a hot one back in your pocket and it'll burn you right through your pants pocket.
Right.
So, you know, that's where these little torches like this are, you know, they're very, very handy because you can focus the flame exactly where you want it to go and really be able to concentrate that flame in a specific area to start a fire quickly.
Yeah, especially on your Tinder.
That's right.
You know, and one of the things though that I like to do still is I'll have a Bic lighter.
Oh, yes.
I'll have a torch lighter. You know, I'll have a couple of things like that. And then I have a number of different things. If I just love Zippos and I want to keep track of keeping this filled, then great. I mean, these are, you know, very collectible,
Yeah.
but they're just, you know, they're just really iconic, and it's just something you want to carry.
I tell you, with the Zippo, one of the very few things that I truly dislike about a Zippo is they're great. They work, you know, they work in really windy conditions. The negative is you always have to keep them fueled. But if you ever get in water, you fall in a lake, you fall in a river, survival situation, and you get this thing wet, the wick in here is going to soak up the water.
Ah, true.
And it's going to be next to impossible to get it to light again.
Right.
So that is one of the reasons why I don't carry one of these as a survival lighter.
Well, if I can find it, the one thing about this, I think it's in here maybe. And it is. Okay, this is a small little, it's one of those lighter fluid lighters. This is from Exotac. Now I'm not going, there it goes. Well, anyway, I picked this up. I've just refilled it again. I picked it up and it worked after sitting there for weeks. That won't work. Okay, but anyway, this thing,
It looks like you got a little fluid on your.
I got
on your
fluid
plant.
all over the place. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I pulled this out. It's been sitting for months, but it's sealed very well.
Mhm.
And so it worked. But then I refilled it and I screwed it up. Don't refill it unless you have to. That thing was on fire at one point. I was like, oh my gosh. But the other part of that is to have your lighter fluid.
Mhm.
And if you have those torches, you need the butane fuel.
Yep.
So making sure you have your fuel set aside as well. And of course, with your standard Bic lighters, you don't have to worry about it. They're disposable, so you get rid of them. But these others, it's good to have that fuel. And two, one thing I do is when I go into a grocery store, they have a 4-pack or a 5-pack.
Mhm.
And every time I'm somewhere and I spot them, I just grab them, I throw them in a box. And so, but I keep them in a dry, cool place because that way they don't get corroded.
Well, they make great Christmas stocking stuffers too.
Yeah. And so do those little torch
torches.
lighters.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have the lighters. To me, lighter, that's one of the best. That's one of the ones that it's most convenient.
Mhm.
Second is the match, and you know, whether it's the Lifeboat matches, waterproof matches, strike anywhere matches,
Yep.
or just household matches. If you've got a box of matches, you know. But the one thing about a match is that striker surface gets worn after a
Mhm.
while. So you know, you just have to really.
Well, and you know that's where I like the strikerless matches, the ones with the white tips that you can light them off of anything. You don't have to have the strike pad to light it.
Right.
You know, in an emergency situation, you can light them off the zipper on your pants.
Right.
So just pop it across your zipper and they'll light.
Right.
So, you know, those are great all around matches. You know, keep them in a dry, you know, waterproof container to keep moisture off of them and all. But for something to be able to light in an emergency situation to where you don't have to have the strike pad, because the strike pads, like you said, they get worn very quickly. They soak up moisture even from your hands very quickly. And next thing you know, they won't strike on them anymore.
Well, when you're outdoors, you know, there's just a lot of humidity typically.
That's right.
And, you know, you can get wet. I mean, you're in wet conditions. So matches, though, do have a place. Plus, you can light a match and it has an extension. So you can kind of get it in there and put it. Again, I keep matches, I keep a lighter, and I keep my ferro rods handy. Ferro rods are, to me, one of the best ways to continue to make fire
That's right.
long after a lot of this fuel is empty. It's a little bit more difficult, but man, you start striking it and it really puts out a hot flame. Now,
Well, and it's making a fire, starting a fire, building a fire is a lot about. It's not so much about the spark, because there's tons of stuff here that we can create spark with and create fire, but it's really important to have the correct material that you're burning.
we're not there yet.
Sorry,
Don't get ahead of our list, Robbie.
man. There
So
I go. Jumping the gun already.
yeah, and what he's talking about is vital. It is vital. So okay, so we have your ferro rods, you have your methods, you want to try different things. One thing that I have that I like is the blast match. And there we go. This little thing, it collapses into one piece, and you can light this with one hand. So you put this on a surface, you press down, and when you hit it, it creates a spark and it burns your hand. But if you put it on a hard surface, this is something you can use with one hand, which is really important when it comes to ferro rods. So I really like the blast match, and I've had a number of these. In fact, I think the Air Force actually issues these in their survival kits. And then you have your Fresnel lens, which I have them, but I'm not sure where it is. But you have a Fresnel lens. We have a magnifying glass. If you have a sunny day, you can take that. And if you're a kid, a lot of times kids, we used to do this. We take a little bit of paper or something and we get the sun and and man, it puts out an incredible hot spot. And so you can use that. You can even use a water bottle. If you get the right angle and you get the sun and the beam transferred, you can burn things. But again,
I've tried that before with a water bottle. The water bottle is tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
A magnifying glass, dude, you can move that thing in and out and just really focus that beam, and you can see the light coming in. And magnifying glasses are easy.
Yeah,
and they're fun to do. It's something fun with your kids to teach them how to use a magnifying glass for that. Now, I love doing the magnifying glass, but the water bottle, trying to get it just right and stop the water from sloshing in it. I've never been able to perfect the water bottle.
Well, now the Fresnel lens, though, it's usually a polycarbonate type material and it bends, so you don't have to worry about it with a magnifying glass like this. This one's glass. This is an old one. You can get different types, but it's one of those things you can take and use and be able to, with a Fresnel lens, you can get a really intense beam. In fact, you can get larger sizes. People use those all the time in different survival situations, especially like sun ovens, when they're building sun ovens, things like that. And so another way. Now, primitive. I mean, there's fire steel, fire and flint, or flint and steel, leather and lace. There's all kinds of stuff. Flint and steel, that's an older method. There's the bow drill method. Now, let me say something about those, because it takes extra skill to be able to master those, especially the bow drill method. But if you have nothing, if you're just out there, you don't have a lighter, you don't have your, knowing those skills are very important. And having some char cloth. In fact, I've got some char cloth right here that I actually made. You can make char cloth. There's a lot of different places, and you just get a small ember and you can use it to start your fire. And that's really what you're doing with the bow drill, is you're starting a small little ember. Where they say there's smoke, there's fire. You start using a bow drill and it starts to smoke, and then it starts to create just a little bit of an ember, and then you use that. But you've got to really protect it. It takes a lot of work. And so those are some things. Of course, next is tinder. Is having tinder. Now we're going to go to some questions here in just a minute. We're going to talk about tinder. We're going to go straight to questions. Tinder is one of the most important parts of getting a fire started, because guys,
ain't that what I said when I jumped ahead?
Yeah, you did. So, he's ahead of his time. But you've got your fire, and that's great. But you try to light a piece of wood, even a really fine wood shaving, and man, it's going to take a lot of fuel, and it takes a lot. So having some tinder, one of the things that I've used over the years that I love is Vaseline and cotton balls, and I keep it in this little container right here. A lot of times I'll keep it in a Ziploc bag. It lights like this. I mean, it just flames up. Vaseline is very flammable. Think about that when you're rubbing your hands and putting your socks over your hands. For all you tender-handed people. Oh, I'm about to fall over. And then also, one of the things that I've really come to love are Tinder Tabs, used by the U.S. military. These small little cotton swabs, they're impregnated, and you can just take them and break them apart, pull them apart. You can cut them in half. You can use them as pieces. And so they just light really fast. you know, I really had thought about doing some demonstrations, but we're not going to because we'll burn the place down. Our bunker will go up in flames.
Well, I was wondering if we were going to get actually play with fire today.
Yeah,
I was
maybe
really looking
afterwards you
forward
and
to
I'll
it.
go out and burn
Yep.
some fire. But these little Tinder tabs, they're very inexpensive. I think these I got at maybe at Exotac. They call it something a little different. But these, and then they have all kind of different styles and types.
Mhm.
The Tinder tabs are great. Again, they're very inexpensive, and you can order a bunch. In fact, even Amazon has them. But I love to have some kind of tinder. Now, also, fat wood.
Mhm.
The center of your pine tree or your pine, if you find some fallen pine and you get down into where the sap has impregnated the wood, this is a great fire starter. So again, if you get back to, you know what, I don't have any tinder, then find some pine and get into the center of it and try to use those shavings. And fat wood is great. You know, we use a lot of, in fact, this is from Fatwood Steels, and I have some really cool Fatwood Steel ferrocerium rods,
Yep.
and I don't know where they are. But those things are great, and they're down in Georgia. I really like those guys. They use a lot of the wood that's right there on their property, and they use a lot of that fat wood, and they actually make fire steels attached to the firewood. So that's a, you know, kind of a 2-in-1.
Mhm.
So, you know, those are some of the tinder. Let me see if there's something else. Oh, well, I mean, there's a ton of stuff. Robbie, you probably know about this one.
Yep.
Trioxane.
Trioxane heater tabs.
Yep.
Yep.
They use those for MREs and a lot of other things back in the military.
Yep. For sea rations.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
Trioxane, they use those for sea rations. MREs use something a little different.
That's
It's
true.
a water activated heater tab. Where
Perfect.
these, you just light these, and it just sits there and burns a nice little flame to cook on. So, but it's a good long lasting flame, which makes it really good for building fires. And you know, you can break these and everything and use them multiple times.
Yeah, because it's about 3 inches
Yep.
long, and we're not going to open this one up, but it's sealed, and so you can just pull it out, use it. Here is some utility flame. Just comes, it's little gel, these little gel packs. I mean, there's a ton of different type starters, tons of them. Sawdust right here. This is
Yep.
impregnated. It's actually fatwood sawdust. This stuff works great. And then we have, there's all kind of commercial. This one is the Pro Camp Tech. I have a couple of different ones, but this is the Pro Camp Tech. I believe this one is the Wildfire. This gives you a lot of fire starting capability because you have a lot of different ways to be able to use this. It's waterproof. We even went down to the creek. We're like throwing it in the water and it's just burning. And so, you know, that's one thing about it though, guys, is you've got to have you got to have some tinder.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about making fire in the rain in just a minute when it's really wet conditions. But this stuff right here is great. I mean, it really lasts a long time.
And you know, something that I like to use for tinder that I store up in some Ziploc bags and stuff at home is dryer lint.
Oh yeah, dryer lint.
Well, I scrape out the dryer lint, it goes in a Ziploc bag. And like you said, with some Vaseline with your cotton balls, I put Vaseline in with my dryer lint because I get a quicker, hotter flame with it. But dryer lint is a tremendous, tremendous fire starter. It lights really quickly. It burns really hot. The fibers are super fine, so it doesn't take a whole lot of spark to get them to burn. So it's a real good one.
Scary thinking about that.
Yeah.
Keep your dryer clean from dryer lint. Then here's another fire starter. This is just a roll with these pieces that come off and you can light them. I mean, there is a ton of different tinders, but tinders are important. In fact, this is, in fact, I got this from a buddy of mine. And this is Eagle Creek Outdoors. I don't think he's doing this anymore, but this is impregnated wood. This stuff is fantastic. It's actually better than fat wood.
When I first got here and saw that, I thought it was beef jerky.
Robbie's getting
You
hungry.
had some jerky for me. I was like, oh, all right. Nope.
Okay.
Just
y'all have some questions. We'll go ahead and answer a few questions. Sarah Mac's getting on the list.
All right. Lucky 13 Driver asked, "Hi Don, I know that a Bic lighter is a primary source for fire starting. Are there any more reliable, durable lighters on the market worth buying?"
Yeah, I would say that the torch lighters are definitely one of the best. And this is, I mean, like I say, I bought a box. I think it was like 20 or 30 lighters in this box. They're actually in a display like you would use at a grocery or at a gas station. But these things, man, I mean, they just put the flame out. And so this is a great one.
And it's a very focused, directed flame, like we were talking about earlier. You can point it where you want the flame to go instead of with a Bic lighter where the flame just kind of comes out and you end up burning yourself trying to light something with it. These are very focused, and they're also refillable. So your butane canisters, all you got to do is stick your butane nozzle in the bottom, and you can refill these.
Now this is one right here, and one of our lights went out, so we don't have quite the lighting. But I think this is the. Can you read that? Because that's actually a pretty good lighter.
A car.
A car, yeah. These are actually, we showed this a minute ago. This just creates a really hot spot right above the port right here, and these are really nice lighters. And again, they're kind of different. And then this is an Exotac little fire sleeve. And so you can put this in, it protects your Bic lighter, and that's the way. And then, of course, I mean, there's just a ton of different type choices. But, in fact, it was funny. I got on the other day and was looking through some different lighter options. That's when I actually bought those torch lighters. But, I mean, there are a ton of different options. But watch the reviews, because sometimes the lighters can be fairly expensive. And then when you get them, they don't really work all that great.
Yeah. I'll tell you though, I like the refillable option.
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
a big one for me, because a lot of times you'll run out of gas, and the lighter still works great. So the refillable option with these is one of my favorites.
Third Eye asks, what's a good way to conceal a fire at night?
There are like Dakota holes where you build your fire under the ground and kind of allow the smoke, and that's even during the day. It allows the smoke to dissipate into the ground and then come up kind of low. That's probably one of the best ways, because light, I mean, you start a fire, it's just a fire. So unless you can conceal it, unless you can build your camp around it, would be another way. Build your structure. And but really, I mean, fire is fire. But those Dakota holes typically are one of the best ways to keep it low and keep it. But when it gets dark, in fact, you can even use a ferrocerium rod for signaling, and it just puts out some spark, and you can see it from 100 yards away. So or even farther. So in the dead of night, fires can be very difficult to conceal, especially if you're in a heavy wooded area where you can kind of get into a place that's not visible from distance.
Yeah, like if you're, like you said, in a wood area, hollow trees. If you can build a fire inside a hollow tree, you can conceal a lot of your flame and a lot of your smoke inside the hollow tree. Caves are another good area to build a fire. If you can keep the fire from reflecting, you have to be deep enough in the cave to minimize reflection.
And two, you could put up one of those Mylar type space blankets,
that's right,
and it will reflect the heat back, and you can kind of use that. Of course, those things are pretty bright. I have a camouflaged one, and then on the other side it has Mylar, so you could actually do something like that. But I guess you'd probably most likely want to kind of conceal your fire more than anything.
FB Drivers Training Network asks, would you recommend saving the flint from dead lighters, and what would be the best way to store them?
Well, cool, dry, dark place is typically the best. Where moisture is not your friend, and so keeping it that way. Going in and trying to get out the flint out of here. Of course, it can be done.
I save the flint and the springs out of them.
Do you?
Yep, and I keep it in an old medicine bottle.
Well, there you go.
Been one of the easiest ways that I've found to store them.
Yeah, put it in there. It'll keep it water sealed, and then you can store this. Again, I still put these in. You don't want them in sunlight. And typically when you're storing something, it's not in sunlight.
The heavy metal headbang toddler asks, how often do you suggest to start a fire for practice?
I mean, at least once a month, I think it'd be good. At least 3 times a year, maybe just get out and build your fires.
In the fall and the winter, when it starts cooling off a lot, as often as you can. We'll have 2 or 3 fires a week.
Right.
Yeah, in the wintertime outside.
Yeah.
And every time we have one, it's just a great opportunity to be able to use a lot of this stuff to build a fire. We work on different ways that we stack the wood, different ways different types of wood that we use, different fire starters that we use, and then that way we can become more proficient in building our fire and building a long-lasting fire when we put one together that's got a minimal amount of smoke and a maximum amount of heat and flame.
One thing too is a good resource if you know someone that's in the Boy Scouts, some maybe a neighbor's kid or something, and that they're around, because we have a Boy Scout in our group, and of course you guys went to Boy Scouts, so his kids also. So man, I'll tell you what, they can get those fires started like boom, and they make them big. What's funny is I went to a survival class from Fieldcraft Survival, and there was probably about 30 people there. And because I have done so many fires, I mean, so it took me about a minute or less to get a big fire going. And and these guys were interested in survival. They had their tools, they had their kits, and it took them a while to get things started. Some of them, I don't know that they even got one started.
Yeah.
So, it's that skill. And the more, just like Robbie said, and I agree with that 100%, is the more you get out there and start fiddling with it, the more you realize how things work. And we're going to talk about some wood stacking, because especially that one you have. We're going to talk about that as well.
Rob Gray asked, question, what are your thoughts on rechargeable or fuelless lighters?
Well, that's what this is. It's a few. Well, I don't think so. I think I actually filled this one. Refuelless lighters are fine. But in electric lighters. But the biggest problem is that if you run out of power, and if it's not charged fully or whatever. But again, then you have your Bic lighter, you have your torch lighter, you have your ferrocerium rod, you have those things as redundancy. So yeah, go with it. I mean, just like the Bic lighter, this is not something that I depend on. This is something that's convenient. And I think that's the same thing with that electric lighter or power lighter. It's something that's convenient. It's just, you like it, so you use it. Yep. But
it's another tool in your tool chest.
Right. But for ultimate depending, I go back to the ferrocerium rod and just have those handy.
Joe Texas says, question, Prepper, have you ever made a fire with a magnifying glass?
Oh yeah.
Yes. We've made quite a few, especially when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that I've done it as much lately. It's been a while. But that's what this little magnifying glass is. It's an old one. I think I found this somewhere at a thrift store or something. But these things are great for starting fires. They really put out an intense beam. So yes.
I can say that the first fire that I ever started was with a magnifying glass. Yep. And I was probably, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old.
Well, I know the worst spanking I ever got was starting a fire in this trash can my mom made. My brother and I were in the house and we were lighting matches. And the match went into the trash can, and it was one of those ice cream containers. And my mom put some kind of decorative something on it. That thing caught on fire. Oh my gosh, we got our butts burnt up. Yeah, it was hotter than that fire.
Yeah. It was about this time of year, fall, late fall, leaves had fallen, so you'd had plenty of dry leaves on the ground. I'm out there with my magnifying glass, lighting these leaves on fire. Yep.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
FB drivers were asked, would you recommend shaving flint from old lighters to impregnate cotton balls?
Yeah, shaving flint. In fact, that's one of the, or shaving, anything like that, especially your ferrocerium rod. I mean, you can shave the material off.
I always shave before I light.
Yeah, me too. I shave before I light.
You scrape it onto your, whatever your like cotton balls or whatever, like the different things we were talking about, but you scrape it, and then hit it with a spark one time, and it's like instant.
Right.
So versus sitting there, spark. It just makes it so much more efficient and easy to light.
And one thing we just left out was the magnesium bar with the ferrocerium rod on here, and you got your striker. I mean, these are old school, but man, they work, and you can shave that magnesium off, and magnesium burns really hot. And
you can pick these up for like $1.50 or $2. They're super cheap.
Louis C. asked about cotton swabs with disinfectant inside the tube that you can use to disinfect a wound or something.
Right. Well, even like you can use antibiotic ointment. There are a number of things. I would test that, because the one problem you're going to have with disinfectant is that it may evaporate.
That's right.
You're going to have to really keep that sealed very tightly. So, and then once you open it, you're gonna release some of that. So, I would check that. WD-40 works really good. In fact, I did a whole video on WD-40, and the thumbnail is me having a lighter with this like flame. In fact, YouTube they demonetized that video. Okay, we're gonna take one more question. We're going back to hardcore. Of course, these are some good questions.
Yeah.
John Starr asked, what do you think about those burning lasers that all you have to do is point the laser to catch on fire points that come from China?
Yeah, I mean, those lasers. I think some of those are illegal, honestly.
They are, because there's a certain wavelength that lasers are supposed to have for the civilian market, and a lot of those that generate that really, really hot, intense point exceed the wavelength that is allowed in the United States.
At least with civilians. Military
correct.
uses really high dollar, really nice lasers.
Yep. And then too, on the flip side of that, it runs off of batteries, so you're going to always have to keep batteries stored up for it, and those things suck batteries. So you can use it for a while. It's going to burn your batteries up unless you have rechargeable batteries for like a long-term solution. It's probably not going to be very viable.
But it's still something that's redundancy. You can put
That's
it in
right.
your fire kit. Again,
It's another tool in your tool chest.
redundancy. One thing I would recommend though, as far as the color of the laser, is red takes less power than green. Just a thought. Okay, we'll take some more questions in a minute, but we're gonna go ahead and go back to our list. We finished up with Tinder. Tinder, guys, you got to have Tinder.
Not Tinder.com, but fire starting Tinder.
Yeah, no, not that kind of fire. You don't have a roaring fire going there, baby. Candles. Candles are a vital part of a fire kit. These little tea light candles, they're great. The one great thing about it is I can light this candle with one flick or so of a Bic lighter or whatever lighter I have, and then it will continue to burn. Then I can get my tinder started. A lot of guys use small little tea light candles under their fire when they get ready to build it. One thing I like are these little Exotac 4-hour candles. They burn for a long time. And they have bigger ones. They have 12-hour and 24-hour and everything else. So these type candles are great. And it also gives you some light, which, is not what we're talking about today, but it does give you that light and it gives you fire starting capability. A lot of times we don't really think about candles, but I think candles are a great part. And there's a ton of different kinds. And then let's see, air. Air is your friend. Now, one of the things about it, I want you to talk here about your setup.
Yep.
But one thing about a fire is a lot of people build teepees, they build log cabins. There's different ways to do it. But the big thing is you want to get air in there to be able, because if you take everything and just pile it on top of each other, it'll smother the fire out. And so you want to learn. And that's another thing about skill, getting out and realizing how you do it. And so a lot of times I'll set up a teepee, but log cabins work great. Now you had a really cool way you do things.
I do. I build a fire a little differently. It's kind of a hybrid between the log cabin and the teepee, where we basically build a small log cabin on the inside and then we teepee around it. So that way, as the fire burns and it falls in on itself, all you have to do is just keep adding more logs, and you can always keep the teepee, which keeps a small, narrow, little taller flame that burns really hot, and it's an easy way to get a real quick coal bed going.
Right. And it's allowing that air to get up under it.
And if you've ever built a fire, tried to build one of the TP fires, you know how hard it is to get the wood to stack around like it's supposed to. You're almost there. You're almost there. Then it all falls in, and then you say 4-letter words and stuff, and you have to pray for forgiveness the next day. That's awful. So and I can't take credit for this. I had a friend of mine that showed me how to do this last year, and he was like, we started to build a fire, and he was like, no, let me show you how to do this. And so he showed me this little trick, and the nice thing about it, it takes almost no kindling at all to get it going. Like you build a log cabin or you build a teepee, you got piles of kindling in there to get this thing going and get it lit. This one little piece of wood right here, and cut this in half and then split that again. That's all that it would take to light it and get the fire going. It's very, very easy to light and get it burning really quick with dry wood.
Right. In fact, I've been wanting to actually do a video talking about that. And one thing that we have fire pits, and Robbie, they have a really nice fire pit, but he spent a lot of time on the fire pit, and it shows. It's beautiful.
Thing almost killed me. I'm telling you.
But the thing is one thing about having a fire pit or having a place to be able to build fire is it gives you a place to protect, to get out there and to create it. And, you're not putting places all in your yard. Plus, you need to be able to protect the area around your fire. You need to have stones or rock or something around it, to make sure that that you're safe, because fires can get loose in a hurry. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about, and I did a video on this a couple of years ago or last year. It had been raining for a week. I mean, it'd been raining. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out and start a fire in the rain. I think I'd done a little bit, but I really hadn't had time to really understand it. And so one of the things about fire in the rain, which you can do with, you think, man, these woods are completely drenched. There's no tinder. There's no nothing. Now, one of the secrets is, and you can use tinder, but having Tinder Tabs makes it easier. But one of the things you want to do is to find some place that has fallen wood, and not necessarily on the ground, but fallen wood that's still leaning. And so you get in there and you cut away a lot of the wood that's on the outside. You get all that wet wood out. Inside will be dry wood. And so when you get that dry wood out, what you do is you go ahead and feather your wood. Now, I want to say this about I missed this on ferrocerium rods. You need to have a high carbon steel knife. And we're going to get into tools in a minute, but having a knife, especially a fixed blade knife, is the best. But you can do it with a folder. Some stainless steels have low carbon, so they won't even strike the striker. They won't even strike it if you don't have a striker. But you need to have a knife to be able to feather your wood and to be able to process your tinder. And so when you get that wood and you just feather it out and you get enough of it, then you take and you start your fire, your little tinder. And then you put sticks, small sticks beside it, all the way around it, kind of like a log cabin. And what that does is these are wet sticks, and that fire dries those sticks out. And as you start to use the small sticks, add a little bit larger sticks, let them dry out, and then larger and larger. And then before long, you have a nice roaring fire. Now, one of the problems is you need to be able to protect it, especially if it's still raining. And so being able to somehow get it in a low cover, get it in a hollowed out log, in a cave, whatever, even if you have to build kind of a shelter over it or put a tarp kind of partially over it, is to get that the secret is, the whole thing is to get that wood that's in the center that's still dry, and then allow it to dry off your logs or wood that's wet.
Yeah, because water can only permeate the wood so deep.
Right.
So no matter how hard it rains or how much it rains, water's only going to soak into the wood so deep. So once you basically cut away the bark, even on a dead tree, once you cut away the bark and get into the wood itself up under that, you're generally already into dried wood.
Right.
So, and if you can find pine trees are, like you were talking about earlier with the fat wood, you get into pine trees and then you can shave off of the pine tree.
The sap,
these big long slivers, and then you've got the sap as well. The pines are super, super easy to light. Pines, cedars, all of those are evergreens,
right?
Essentially, are a lot easier to light than a lot of your hardwoods.
Right. And so, and there is a video on that. You can go to the little hourglass icon and just put in, fire starting in the rain on the channel, and it'll come up, and you can see the whole process. It was a lot of fun, actually. Now, getting into tools. Tools again, knife. In fact, I meant to grab it and I didn't, but I use those little Mora knives, and I use the ones that are carbon steel. There's some that are stainless steel, but I typically get the carbon steel, and I've made some survival kits out of those. Some of them even have a ferrocerium rod in the handle. But if you can take those and then you can strip that wood. Now, you're going to make your tinder first. You need to be able to have a knife to do that. And so you start feathering and just get that feathering down. And then once you get the feathering, then you can start even drawing it, where you take the knife and put it into a log and pull the wood to you. One thing about that is it keeps you from cutting yourself. And so you pull that wood to you, and then, of course, batoning, which we've shown that a number of times. But you take your knife, you put it on the edge of the wood like this, and then you take another piece of wood and you tap the end to where it just splits the wood. It's a real great way to get smaller pieces that are dry, that are not just little tiny sticks. And that loose wood, that raw wood will burn really quickly. Having a saw. In fact, again, I was gathering all this stuff, but I missed a lot of stuff. The one saw that I really love, in fact, to me, it is the best. And I've ordered a number of them now, is the Silky Saw. And it's a foldable saw, and you can get them actually with a handle that long. So when they fold out, they're very small. But you can get larger ones. Man, those things, it's some kind of Japanese cutting edge on it. Those things are phenomenal at cutting. We did a review on it. I've got some bigger ones that we're going to be also doing some. I think I've got the big boy, and that was the one I did the review on. But now I've gotten the smaller one, and I've got the larger one. But man, and when it cuts, it is just it looks like somebody took a regular, like a power saw. It's so just perfectly flat. But having a good saw, you can go ahead and use that to saw wood. In fact, I found that when I was at the Fieldcraft Survival School. Those guys that were running the school actually were using them, and they gave me one and said, "Try this out." I was like, "Oh my gosh, this thing is awesome!" So and an axe, a nice axe is also good to have, and you can use it. The one thing about an axe, though, I like the saw better because an axe is dangerous, or a hatchet. And if you end up, swinging it and you cut yourself, especially if you're out in a survival type situation.
Oh, that's the thing. It's really easy. You're tired, you're wet, you're cold, you're trying to split kindling, and you hit it wrong. The blade glances off of the wood and hits you.
Right.
And it's a done deal.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, I mean,
you're
you're
finished. That's right.
in trouble.
Yep.
But still, it's still one of those things that people have used for centuries, and so it is a viable tool to use. Uh, of course, you've got your strikers that are on your fire steels typically, but like this one, I don't have a fire steel. There's not a striker that goes with the Exotac fire steels, but that's where I use my knife. And
Mhm.
don't use the blade, use the spine, use the back of the knife. But again, you need carbon steel to be able to set those sparks off. So, okay, let me see what else we got, and then we may go to some more questions. And then there's improvised things. I mean, there's like you can take. In fact, I've got some somewhere over here. A steel wool. You can take
Mhm.
steel wool. You know what steel wool looks like, so I have to show you.
There we go. I just saw it.
Steel wool, and you put it to a battery on the both connections, especially like a 3-volt battery,
Mhm.
and where you have the two connections side by side. You light that thing will light up. I mean, it just catches on fire. And so that is one thing if you don't have any other options, and just improvising to create some kind of fire. And of course, if lightning strikes near you, you can,
That's right.
the chances of that happening though. But the feathering, getting the wood right, you're going to have a knife to do that. The batoning, you can do that with a hatchet, but to me, having a knife, fixed blade knife, being able to hit that edge, we've done that 1,000 times, and all those things. Okay,
And one of the big things is once, all of these are great tools and great ideas to be able to get a fire started. But the big thing is, especially in a long-term situation, is don't let your fire go out.
right,
Once you get it built, you get your fire established, you've got all of your stuff, your fire's going, it's nice. Make sure that you have a stockpile of wood to be able to feed your fire during the day and at night and keep your fire from going out. Because once you go through all of this
right.
to be able to get your
That's a
fire
good
started,
point.
get your fire lit, you've got a fire going now. You want to make sure that you can keep that fire going. So that's gonna if you don't pre-plan and already have wood chopped and split and ready to go, that's something that you're going to have to do on a daily basis is cutting wood, splitting wood, chopping wood, and having good dry wood as well as some green wood that's going to burn, that's going to smolder and create a good coal bed. So just something to consider. You go through all this trouble to get your fire lit and get it going. Make sure you have the materials there to be able to keep that fire going long term.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than when you're camping somewhere and you
Hmm.
spend most of your time out there looking for wood out in the
Yep,
woods, and
that's
it's
right.
dark and you stumbling, and so yeah, go
Yep,
ahead and get that wood together while it's still light is also a good option.
absolutely.
Okay, if we have some questions, we're going to take a few more. But guys, while we're getting ready, while she's preparing, fire kits. Guys, put together a fire kit. I mean, I just highly recommend it,
Yep.
even if you just keep it in your vehicle. Of course, obviously, in a get home bag or go bag or bug out bag, you need that fire kit. It keeps everything together. And well, I love this orange color. I have
Yep.
3 of these, and these things are great because you know exactly what they are.
Cruiser 122 SD says, would a sterno be a good fire starter?
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, sterno definitely.
He also asked, if you live in an apartment, how do you practice starting fires?
Well, you go, I mean, obviously, if you live in a very dense area, you're going to need to go out somewhere. You might not want to go to a municipal park or anything. You might get arrested, but get outside of the city. That's the only thing, because you definitely don't want to start a fire and have fire marshal on you.
Yeah.
Or get you a fire like a charcoal grill or something. You can use
Mhm.
that and start your fires and
Yep.
play around with it.
Yeah, charcoal grill's a great place. Campgrounds, lots of campgrounds. Most states have like the KOA campgrounds that you can go for the day or go and camp out there and practice your fire starting skills over the weekend.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yep.
Tattooed Hands Piano asked, how much space should you clear of brush, flammable things around a fire to prevent accidental spread? How do you prepare to be able to extinguish your fire quickly and safely if needs be?
It kind of depends on your situation. If you're at home, it's the wind's not blowing. You've got a nice cool windless day. Yeah, I would say 8 or 10 feet around your fire. Um, if it's going to be a windy day, the wind's going to be blowing more, then you're going to have to really go out further than that. And you're also going to have to manage the type of fire that you build and the type of kindling that you use that's going to minimize any type of sparks that are going to be escaping the fire that could land on dry leaves or dry wood and be able to start a secondary fire.
Yeah, and you might want to keep a bucket of water handy.
Yep.
You know, if you're outside of a hose where you can wash it down, but also have blankets. You can use those as well, or fire extinguisher for that matter.
Yep, and a rake.
Yeah, rake.
Rakes
Rake's
are always
to
good.
get that area cleaned out.
Yeah, because if you notice a little fire, secondary fire that started out away from where you are, 9 times out of 10, you can go over there with your rake and just kind of rake it and kill it, if as long as it's until it gets out of hand.
Right.
But that's where you're always being aware of your surroundings, aware of what's going on, and catching things early like that before it does have a chance to get out of hand.
Third Eye has a related question. How long do fire extinguishers typically last in storage?
They typically have an expiration date on
Yep.
them, but
Most fire extinguishers, from what I've found, is until you open it and use it, most fire extinguishers will last almost indefinitely. I've got some fire extinguishers that haven't been recharged in probably 30 years that are they're just in storage in my shop. I've got a few in there like that. And you look at the dial on them, the dials are still reading full on those. So until you pull that pin and squeeze the handle and break the seal in there and actually use that fire extinguisher, 9 times out of 10, that fire extinguisher is still going to be good and usable. Once you break the seal on it and actually use that fire extinguisher, that it's done. You're going to have that fire extinguisher cleaned and serviced and refilled for it to be good again, because you get the powder and then the carbon dioxide and everything build up on the rubber seals, and they never seal back like they're supposed to once you've used it that first time.
Lucky Driver 13 asks, are all fire steels about the same quality? And a related question, Jacob Hobson asks, best ferro rod.
well, no, they're not the same. Some of them are very soft, some are very hard, and just more dense. One thing about a fire steel too is if you leave this out in the rain, it will degrade. It will corrode and it'll be unusable after a while. And they'll break apart. But I like to have a fire steel that's not super hard. But the thing about being the harder it is, the more dense it is, the longer it'll last. So I find that the Exotac fire steels to me are some of the best. They're very high quality, all made here in the U.S. In fact, down in Georgia, they just seem to last, and they're about that right kind of density. Some of these real soft ones, they'll run out in no time, but they're easier to use. So, it's just finding that one. Some people get really particular about their fire steels. I'm not as particular as far as trying out a bunch of different ones, but I've always found that the Exotacs, and again, you get 20% off using the link down below in the description, and we appreciate them offering that. But, that helps because these things are not cheap because they're very well made, and they have these cylinders that actually have the Tinder tabs you can put in there. And I think this one even has duct tape around the end. But this is a large one. This is their extra large. They make some smaller ones as well.
Andrew Alardi asks, what is your top 3 fire tools for EDC pocket carry?
First off is the knife. A knife would be number one. A Bic Lighter, actually, for EDC. A Bic Lighter's fine. I'm not really all that concerned about it. I always have my fire kit with me. I have one in the car. So if I'm somewhere else, I have it. I have one in the shop. I have one, handy. I have one in my go bag. So I know that I can get to fire. Just like when my father-in-law was building that fire, I immediately went, oh, I got my fire kit. So I went and got it, got started. Of course, I was a rock star. That's one thing. That's one way to be a rock star is know how to start fires when you have that kind of issue. So knife, my fire kit, if I have it, but a Bic lighter and some kind of tinder. I mean, if I was really wanting to have, those are the 3 things that I would definitely have. I can get the rest, but the fire, and 2, instead of a Bic lighter, you may want to go with just a ferrocerium rod because you don't have to worry about it.
I usually try and wear my tinder.
Yeah, you wear your TA if you have to pull it off and light it up.
That's right.
But so I guess really my whole thing would be some kind of fixed blade knife or a knife that has decent carbon steel in it, and then I'd have a ferrocerium rod, and then some kind of tinder, and one that would be easy to carry are these little Tinder tabs. They're dry. They're not, they're impregnated, but they're dry and they're easy. So
that's small enough that you could just stick it in your pocket.
Yeah. You
it's going to be unobtrusive.
Put a tiny little Ziploc bag or whatever, or put it in just a little pouch if you want to carry it.
Tao 313 asks, ever use a pencil sharpener and a small twig? They make nice airy flowers and easy to carry.
Yes, they do. And here's one right here. I love the pencil sharpener for that very reason. Here's one that's a little bit upgraded. It's like a grater, and you can take it. It's like a cheese grater. And so you just run the wood over it, and you can create that same sawdust or the little small shavings that you can with a pencil sharpener. Thank you, because actually that was on the list and I forgot it. Can't forget the pencil sharpener.
That's right.
Yeah, because just like with a pencil, I mean, it's like the wood. You
Mhm.
just, and it comes off in those little flakes. Easy to light.
Beverly Huntington asked, "What was that roll?" And I think it wasn't the tool roll. I think it was that other roll.
This little roll,
Maybe this one.
I think it was the one of those like little.
oh,
underneath
one
it.
of these.
I think so.
This is the Pro Camp Tech. And these are either impregnated with wax. One's with wax, one's with some kind of fuel or some kind of.
Yeah, this is, I believe this one is wax and this one is fat wood.
So it gives you some different options. And then there is the Wildfire, which this stuff burns great. In fact, we did a whole review on that, but it's the Fire Stick. I believe it's Wildfire. These are great. They're waterproof. So are the Pro Camp Techs. But these things are just excellent. And it's just an easy ways. They're commercially made and they're made to really start. So, that's one thing too. Okay. So I think we're running out of time. Guys, we want to thank Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring today's episode. Again, you get $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Sootch, just SOOTCH in the coupon code, and it works.
I'm telling you, it's the hottest deal out there.
It's the hottest deal. It's the hottest deal out there.
It's the hottest deal you can get today. Yeah, you got to sign up for their buyers club as well. Their buyers club, you get additional savings as well as free shipping on almost all of their items. So it's a way to save even more money on your purchases. And make sure you sign up and get their magazine, their catalog. It's a tremendous, tremendous catalog. Get through there with all their surplus stuff, their knives, everything that they have. It's just an amazing catalog to get.
Yeah, I mean, Sportsman's Guide's been around for over 40 years. Yep. They're just great, and we really appreciate them working with us. Again, I told them, I said, as much as I buy from you guys already, and a lot of times I just buy stuff. I don't, it's not like I get in touch with them and everything. I just buy it and then use it because it's just a great resource. And we also appreciate Sarah Mack for being over, answering the questions and kind of keeping us in line. And also Robbie Wheaton from WheatonArms.com. Again, gunsmith for over 20 years, does custom gun work, which I left off at the beginning. Yeah. And also they do a really incredible line of Glock aftermarket parts. Their flat face trigger, if you own a Glock and you try one of his flat face triggers, if you own 2 or 3, you're going to get broke.
You'll be buying more.
Because those people all the time get in touch with me and they'll say, dude, man, you ruined me. I bought that Wheaton Arms flat face trigger, and now I bought 5 of them. Yeah. So, and then their conversion barrels from 40 to 9, and just their standard barrels, excellent rifle groove barrels, not polygonal, so you can shoot reloads or whatever, and they're match grade. They're great barrels.
Plated, jacketed, polymer coated bullets. It doesn't matter. You can shoot them in our barrels.
Yeah, and they have a lot of other parts too as well. So check out WheatonArms.com. Also, if you need medical supplies, GoMed Gear. Robbie owns GoMed Gear as well. And so, and we really appreciate him being here and endowing us with his knowledge of all the knowledge.
Dude, this is just fun. I enjoy coming over and talking about this stuff. And, once the cameras go off, you guys, we'll be here for another hour talking about this exact same stuff. Sarah Mack's over here just shaking her head. She's like, yep.
So we really appreciate you guys for being here. Thanks for coming by. Oh, also Exotac, and there's a link in the description. I mean, they have the best fire starting tools out there. I mean, just incredible tools. So check them out, and you get 20% off of the Exotac prices. So that really makes it nice as well. So we're going to sign off. Be strong. Be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.